Shankroff Tennis Center is located on the north side of Lebanon Valley College campus. The contents of the tennis center include parking, a pavilion, team seating, tennis courts, and a bathroom. It should be noted that the tennis center is still under construction, and at the time of this evaluation, there is no audience seating available and the ramp is unfinished. The tennis center is next to the red parking lot and has 8 handicap spaces. This is in compliance with the ADA requirement for a parking lot with 300 to 400 spaces. Each space measures 8 feet wide and has an access aisle at least 5 feet wide, which complies with ADA regulations. There is also one van accessible space with a marked sign reading "Van Accessible." The space meets the requirements for being 8 feet wide with an 8-foot access aisle. Each access aisle is marked to discourage parking and adjoins an accessible route to the sidewalk. Each space is marked with a sign that includes the international symbol of accessibility. However, the signs do not meet the requirement for being 60 inches off of the ground from the bottom of the sign. Also, the spaces are not located near the closest accessible route and are not dispersed throughout the multiple route entrances. In order to make the parking lot compliant with ADA regulations, the signs can be raised to meet the minimum of 60 inches, and the parking lot can also be reconstructed to allow close entrance to the facility. There was an exterior route which met the ADA regulation for being stable, firm, and slip resistant. The route measured 96 inches wide, which complies with the regulation for being at least 36 inches wide. The parking lot also featured 4 curb ramps. These curb ramps all meet the requirement for having curb ramps where the accessible route crosses a curb. The cross slopes were within the 1:48 ratio, which meet the ADA requirements. The curb ramps also meet the requirement for being at least 36 inches wide and having a level landing that is at least 36 inches wide and at least as wide as the curb ramp. The curb flares of 3 curb ramps meet the ADA requirement for having a 1:10 ratio. However, the curb ramp closest to van accessible parking spot did not meet the required 1:10 ratio. The running slope of the curb ramps followed a 1.26 to 10 ratio, which does not meet the ADA required 1:20 ratio. In order to make the curb ramps compliant with ADA regulations, the curb ramps can be regraded to meet the ratio regulations, and the curb flares can be reconstructed to meet the ratio regulations.
When analyzing tennis court access, there is an incomplete path from the parking lot sidewalk to tennis court access path. This gap is partially dirt or stones, and as a result, it is challenging or impossible for a walker or wheelchair to traverse this off-road terrain. The resulting slopes of descent and ascent to the tennis court access path throughout the unpaved area are outside of ADA compliance. These images show an example of the difficulty an individual who is wheelchair bound may experience when crossing this unpaved area. There is a 2 to 3 inch ledge ascending to the newly concreted path, which is difficult or impossible to traverse by way of a wheelchair. As the path reaches the tennis courts, there is an accessible route to each type of sport activity. The width of this path is 72 inches, well in compliance with the minimum of 36 required inches. At the courts, there is at least one accessible route that connects both sides of the courts. The large gap in fencing allows smooth passage from sidewalk to each side of the main courts. Additionally, the open gap between fences at the entrance of the courts allows for easily changing sides. While most aspects of the path to the courts are ADA compliant, the running slope of the descending path is greater than that defined by ADA. ADA requires that the running slope of a path be no more than 1:20. However, the path to the courts is currently 2.28 to 20, greater than the ADA stated maximum slope. The image on the left displays the out-of-compliance path to the courts, with its descending grade slightly more than ADA requirements. The right image highlights gaps in fencing around the courts, allowing smooth and unobstructed access. To come into ADA compliance, paving should be completed to bridge the gap between the sidewalk and the tennis court access path. Additionally, regrading is required to reduce the path grade to a maximum slope of 1:20. Flat benches and the space beside benches are both within ADA compliance. However, since the benches have only a 10-inch width, do not have backings, and there is a lack of wheelchair space designation, the spectating areas are partially out of ADA compliance. These images show the benches and spectating areas. Note that benches do not have backs and there is no wheelchair space designation. To bring the spectating area within ADA compliance, the superior bench seat surfaces should be replaced with wider boards of at least 20 inches. Adding backings to the current benches or replacing the benches altogether with those in full ADA compliance, as well as using concrete paint to designate space for wheelchair seating are potential solutions to the current ADA compliance concerns.
At the tennis courts, there is one toilet room that is accessible. This bathroom is unisex and handicap accessible. There is an accessible route to the accessible toilet. This route is located between the two fenced-in tennis areas. There is a sign at the toilet room. The text characters contrast with their backgrounds that allows the writing to be easily seen. The text characters are raised which further helps when reading the sign. There is braille on the sign that will allow an individual that is blind to read it. The sign is located on the left side of the door, so someone who is blind will be able to locate the sign by touch. The baseline of the lowest character is at least 48 inches above the floor. The lowest characters are 60 inches above the ground. However, the baseline of the highest character is more than 60 inches above the ground. This was measured at 61 inches. Lowering the sign by at least 1 inch will make the sign ADA compliant. This will have the highest characters at the maximum height of 60 inches above the floor, while keeping the lowest characters above the minimum value of 48 inches above the ground. The opening of the door is at least 32 inches. The opening is 34 inches. The threshold of the door is no more than 1/4 of an inch high. The door is equipped with the appropriate handle. Someone will be able to open the door with one hand without tightly grasping, pinching, or twisting of the wrist. The door handle is 36 inches above the ground, which is between the ADA requirements of 34 to 48 inches. The door can be easily opened without applying a large amount of force. The door closes faster than 5 seconds between 90 and 12 degrees. The door closes in 3.5 seconds. This does not allow enough time for an individual using an assisted device to enter the bathroom before the door closes. By installing a new spring of a larger resistance, this will cause the door to close in 5 seconds or more. This will ensure an individual can enter the bathroom without having the door close on them. There is clear floor space which allows a person in a wheelchair to turn around without hitting objects in the bathroom. The hand sanitizer is not over an obstruction and is no higher than 48 inches from the ground. The hand sanitizer is exactly 48 inches above the ground. The center line of the toilet is between 16 and 18 inches from the side wall. This was measured at 17 inches. This clearance around the toilet is 61 inches from the side wall and 85 inches from the rear wall. The top of the toilet seat is 18.5 inches above the floor. This is between the requirements of 17 and 19 inches. A grab bar of 42 inches on the side of the wall that is 12 inches away from the rear. The grab bar is 35 inches from the ground, which is between the requirements of 33 and 36 inches. The grab bar on the rear wall is 35 inches above the ground. There is not at least 12 inches of clearance between the grab bar and the protruding objects. This protruding object is a toilet paper dispenser, which is 43 inches above the ground. The center line of the dispenser is not 7 to 9 inches in front of the toilet. In order to fix this non-compliant issue, the toilet paper dispenser needs to be completely repositioned on the sidewall. In its current position, someone may not be able to get the toilet paper out of the dispenser. Moving the dispenser forward will allow people to access the toilet paper.
Overall, the LVC Shankroff Tennis Center is well adapted to ADA regulations. However, there are still compliance issues with parking, walkways, seating, and restrooms that could be brought into full ADA compliance. ADA compliance of the Shankroff tennis courts should continue to be monitored as construction is completed in the near future.